Welcome back to the Being Free podcast. So, today we have a wonderful guest. We are so excited. And when I give you the keyword Hawaii, you probably know who it is.
And seriously, this woman is one of the most amazing mentors that we both had the blessing to work with, to be in her energy. And she is just the total living embodiment of what she teaches and what she shares. So let's give a round of applause for
Candace. Aloha.
the Godself.
Aloha, aloha, everyone. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much. And your words just warmed my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you guys.
Me too. We love you too. Yeah, it's truly amazing to have you here. Okay, so would you like to tell our listeners about you and how you entered the world of manifestation and especially the law of assumption? And yeah, maybe giving us the summary of your manifestation journey. And then probably the biggest advice you would give someone who made starting out and for someone who is on this path for a while and feels stuck or where it just doesn't click.
Yes, yes. Well, I started my manifestation journey, I would say about 12 years ago. And it honestly came from a place of pain. I had experienced a lot of just devastating events in my life. And I got to a point where I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, what is this? Who are we? Why are we here? What are we doing? Like, what is this? Why does it seem like some people are struggling, and like myself at the time? And why is it that some people are having amazing lives? Like, what's the deal? So I started to question what I was seeing because it didn't feel like that was the full story. So I went into seeking mode, which I'm sure that many people can relate to that. I went into seeking and I'm like, okay, what is it? And I started with psychology, actually. So psychology was where I thought I could find the answers to these life questions, and went into psychology, studied psychology. Then from there, I picked up the book Radical Forgiveness from Colin Tipping, which is a great book, and that answered a lot of questions, but I kept wanting more. So I kept seeking more and more and more, went into A Course in Miracles, Abraham Hicks, on to Ho'oponopono, and then finally, Neville Goddard. And it's interesting because all of those things were great. They really were. And each and in and of themselves, they were great. But I have to say that encountering Neville Goddard's work, it really brought me back to myself, and it brought me back to realizing who I truly am. And that is what just opened the door. Instead of being a seeker and continuously seeking and trying to problem solve, it became fun, right? Manifesting became fun, became lighthearted. Life became just joyous. And so that was the journey, guys, in a nutshell.
That's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing. And we definitely resonate, especially the seeker's path, right? When you first awaken to consciousness manifestation, and then sort of people go on this loop or hamster wheel before they sort of find, who they truly are. And Neville is really one of the greatest, modern mystics, I would say, that really brought this to the forefront. And just boldly, telling us that we are God, consciousness at our core, we are God. And that really ended the seeking journey for me too. And I'm sure for Nia.
Yeah. For me, it was, I started with probably the majority of people with the classic law of attraction. And then I came across Neville and non-dualistic teachings. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? There was really no separation and we are all one. And there was no universe outside of me. And it was really mind-blowing to see, okay, I'm not just a little human being, but this is just a temporary experience that I choose to have. And now it's all about exploring and learning more about myself every day. And yeah, it's really fun, actually.
Yes, so much fun, right? And it's so interesting to see the difference, right? From starting off seeking and like really wanting to find answers, and now, at least for me, it's like, oh, I am the answer. Like it's me. Like I was who I was searching for, and here I am. And so it's so fun to be in this space. Yes. You asked me another question. You said, what advice would I give to someone starting off and someone who has been manifesting for a while, maybe feeling frustrated? And interestingly, the advice is the same for both, and it would be to keep it simple and have fun. I think for both groups of people, it can be really easy to make this complicated and to seek so much that you lose the fun and manifesting. And manifesting is so much fun. I think if we all go back to the first time we realized that we were consciously manifest, or that we're manifesting, it was exciting to discover that, right? It was like, oh, cool, like I'm actually doing this, right? And so, right, it's like, oh, who knew? Like, this is cool. And so my invitation is to get back to that moment, that remembrance, I guess you could call it, of realizing that we are creating, we are manifesting, we're doing this all the time. And so to get back to having fun with manifesting.
Yeah, I guess this whole topic of fun is so often overlooked. And yeah, coming from this typical human mindset where it's all about making things complicated and having a structure and this linear thinking, but that's not really fun. This is really like, ugh. But when you allow yourself to have fun, then yeah, things will just feel so much more light.
Yes, absolutely. It just shifts even how you experience life every single day. And I think that's what matters so much. I think sometimes we're into manifesting, and we're thinking about these big, kind of desires, and we're looking to those to bring some type of fulfillment, but there's fulfillment right here and now. And by, having fun right now, that really allows you to see that, like, oh, there's nothing missing right now. Like right now, it's perfect. So yes.
Yes, that is the gold. I want everyone to replay that piece. The fulfillment is right here, right now, because you are it. You are everything. And then approaching that, like you said, from this playful lightness, almost like that child essence, right? Where it's just wonder, play in your most innate nature, because that's when the God in you shines through. And really, you manifest the most beautiful things from that state. You can even call it, the top state, right? The God state. And
Yes.
I know, Candace, you are huge on, telling people to really experience their God nature for themselves, rather
Yes.
than getting so caught in the head with that seeking loop.
Exactly. Absolutely. It's one thing to hear this information or read about it, but when you actually experience it, it changes everything for you. It's like, oh, like I really understand who I am. I feel who I am. It's not just I've heard about who I am, or, someone told me. It's like, I feel it. I know it, right? It's just a totally different experience.
Yeah, and what recently changed a lot for me was really seeing everything as my creation, even this crazy stuff that seems like chaos. But this actually makes me whole, because for God, there was non-duality, there was no good, no bad, there was just everything. And yeah, and seeing those things not as mistakes or something like, it's more like, oh, that's cool. This is actually my creation, and it's a form of art. And when we look at art, there is really no good, no bad. There is just yeah, everything, no rules.
Yes, yes. It's all this beautiful like symphony, right? It's this beautiful
Mhm.
symphony. It's just yes. I
Yeah,
love
and
it.
I used to blame myself or even shame or have guilt for what I created, but this just, yeah, I created more of that instead of just embracing it and celebrating it even. As crazy or messed up this sounds, guys, this is really life-changing for me.
Yes. That embracing, right? Embracing the journey and everything that you experience. It's a really beautiful thing. Yes.
Yeah. Another question that I had, or we both have, was okay, what was really your breakthrough, or what was the point on your manifestation journey where everything kind of clicked for you, or was it more a gradual thing?
Yeah, which I think you've already mentioned a little bit because you said that you were in
Yeah.
that seeking loop. And so you probably already covered that question, but if you wanted to add more to that,
Sure, sure. You know, one thing that's interesting about that question is when I look back, I see that my journey followed the states that I was in. So, like, you know, the seeking loop, that state of being a seeker kind of shaped my journey. And then I moved into a problem solving kind of mode. And so that shaped my journey. And so it's really interesting. So it was gradual, but there was a specific mystical moment that I did have that I would be remiss if I didn't share that. And it was probably about 5 years ago. And I specifically remember being like, I'm done with like manifesting being hard. I'm done with, you know, seeking anything and all of that. I'm just done with that. I just kind of made this bold decision. I'm done. Right. And what happened, and this was very spontaneous, I believe I was in a state akin to sleep. And I noticed that I could actually move into different people's experiences. And at first, it was really weird, to be honest, because I was sitting in this kind of office area and I was able to like literally move into people's experience. And that was when by that I mean I could literally like pick up their thoughts, I could pick up their emotions, and I could literally viscerally feel what they were experiencing. And I could move in and out of different people. It was the weirdest thing, but yet it was the moment when I realized I really am consciousness. Like I really am. I felt that. It was like a visceral knowing of, oh, I really am consciousness. I understand that. And from that point on, I never questioned who I was ever again. So it was definitely a gradual kind of journey, but there was this very mystical experience that was very spontaneous, that it's like, oh, I never questioned after that who I am. Very
absolutely.
interesting.
Wow, it's so
Thank you for sharing
mind-blowing.
that
Wow.
because I just want to share that too, right? Because I think it was also in one of your containers that I was in where I experienced a near death experience through my car crash. And exactly, I experienced what that, it was a gradual step for me too until that point where, like you said, I was pure consciousness
Yes.
and just choosing to reanimate my body. And
Yes.
after that, it's, like you said, it's one thing to know it and to learn about it, but it's a whole different experience once you actually experience it, the visceral feeling,
Yes.
and then integrating that and embodying it back into your day to day. So, absolutely. I love that share. Thank you so much. I mean, this is the ultimate freedom, right? When we're so anchored in that, no more seeking, no more becoming. It's just you have arrived.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. I
Yeah.
love that. And thank you for sharing that. I remember that moment when that happened. And I remember imagining for you. And it was, it's so interesting to hear you talk about it because it was such a huge moment for you on your journey. So amazing.
And the speed at which I've decided to heal and recover from that was definitely from that experience to knowing who I am.
Yes. Oh my
And thank
gosh.
you for imagining the community. Oh, beautiful. Just
Yeah, we are so happy that you are alive, and otherwise
Yes.
probably never crossed our paths.
Yes, it's huge. It's really, really huge. And, you know, I want to go back, if that's okay, to what Neo is saying, because it's this idea that something on the surface may seem bad, right? A manifestation might seem bad, but it's not. It's not. It's there. It's a part of your journey, a beautiful part of it that is life-changing. So I appreciate that share.
absolutely. And thank you. And I absolutely agree, because once you really anchor in who you are and land in that God space, the I am, you see everything as beautiful, all sorts of experience. And that's the paradox too. When you see, the so-called negative or so-called bad, but that's just a human judgment. But when you see it from the God's eye, from the God's perspective, everything is perfect. Everything is truly beautiful and perfect and always working out for you. That's actually what you end up receiving more. And there's actually nothing to fear anymore.
Exactly. That's the ultimate freedom that you're talking about, which is so amazing. I love it.
Yeah, and and it's really when you see your life as a movie, then you just know, okay, so many people love movies who have a lot of action scenes or stuff that makes your heart beat and really what feels exciting. And this is how you should, or how you could see your life as well, with like, okay, those are just some action scenes. I want some entertainment, and yeah, this is it, instead of seeing it something against you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see it as a game that's rigged in our favor. That's how I perceive life. Yes.
Yeah.
We love that. We love that. And yes, so speaking of your class, Ultimate Freedom, you talked about the illusion of time and action. So I mean, we can talk about both the illusion of time and action because I feel like most people are caught in these concepts and feel limited by them. So Nia, did you want to start with time or?
Okay. Since we know, when we came to those teachings, time is an illusion, is it possible to change one's age or the date? And do you have personal experience with that? Or could you share an example or some examples of your community? Because we
Yes.
just love examples or success stories. To see, okay, this is actually true and this works.
Of course. And, I just love conversations about the illusion of time and physical action, because it really speaks to who we are. And so first, of course, it's possible. Of course it is. Now, with that being said, though, specifically with age, I think it's interesting because what I find when people come to me about this is they don't necessarily care about age itself. They care about the meaning that comes with age. So there's certain I'd say milestones and things that we associate with different ages. And so people are saying, I don't want, to experience decline as I age, right? That's really what the fundamental thing is. And so we get at, well, what is it? What is the core desire here? The core desire is to be vibrant, to have vitality, to really experience just, I'd say, feeling limitless within the physical body, right? And so we've had people really, I would say, seemingly defy age, like they don't age, and in fact they kind of age backwards, which is really, really interesting. We've had many people in our community do that, and it's simply by them just really assuming that they don't age, that they are ageless, right? They're timeless, they're not bound by time. And so we've had many people do that, where their physical appearance, they look way younger than the age that they are. Also things that they're able to do physically with their bodies as well, which is really, really interesting. With you mentioned the date. An example I have of that that's really interesting. There's two actually, and the second one kind of bleeds into physical action, but the first one was somebody in our community. I just think the story is so fascinating. They needed to catch a train at like 7:23 a.m. and it was like 7:20 and they were still driving to the train station. So seemingly there was no way they were going to arrive on time, right? It's just not. They're not going to catch the train. So they really felt into being on the 7:23 train. Like they really felt that. Long story short, they got there at 7:24 and they got onto a train. It actually did happen to be the 7:23 train, or I believe it was 7:27. A train came up and it was the 7:23 train. And I thought it was interesting because it was this kind of collapsing of time that they could tangibly see, right? Them and their family, they were all pursuing this train. And it was such an interesting way to see how you can kind of collapse this concept of time. And that's something that I really like to have fun with, is if I'm late somewhere, I like to just imagine that I arrived on time, and it's really cool to see how time kind of collapses. And you can feel that, like when you're having a lot of fun, time seems to go by really fast, right? And when you're not really having fun, time seems to go slow, but you can play with that, right? You can play with that intentionally, and that's a lot of fun. The other thing, this is more about physical action, so forgive me for shifting into that, but I think this is such a cool story. We had another person in our community. She had a project that she needed to complete for work, and she didn't want to go into work. She's been working from home. She didn't feel like going in, but in order to complete the project, she would have had to have gone into work. And she was like, I don't want to go into work. Like, I don't want to. And so she assumed that the project was already done, that she had already completed the project. And what was so cool is a few days after assuming that, she opened her computer, and sure enough, the project was already there. And so she had completed this project, although she really didn't, right? It was there on her computer. And I just thought, this is so cool, right? These are examples of really seeing how limitless we really, really are. And it's fascinating. It's just fascinating.
Oh, that's so cool. I mean, I could have used that in my university.
You can revise that you did.
I can do
this. It's so cool. And
real life magic.
Right? It's just amazing. And these stories, it's so funny, you guys, because when I first got into this type of like out of thin air manifesting, I really was very quiet about it. Like, I didn't want to talk about it publicly because it just seemed like so weird, right? It just seemed weird. And so I didn't want to talk about it. And it was one of my clients who manifested toilet paper out of thin air. She was like, we need to talk about this. We need to have a class on this. Like, this needs to be discussed. And it opened up this whole new world where we're getting stories all the time that are awesome. And we can really see that this is actually the norm. It's the norm. And so it's been really fun.
Yeah. And I mean, this has a lot to do with parallel realities and that everything exists at the same time. And we just jump into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so fun to play with these ideas, because you really see that we are not bound by time, and we're not bound by physical action either. Physical action is not a cause. And I think that is so liberating to realize.
Yeah, I love your examples. You always give the most fun examples too. And it just gets me so excited. And that's the thing, right? The energy carries through. Like you want to live life and start playing with your manifestations and keep it lighthearted. And then, yes, like I love all of your examples. And I know, especially with when it comes to action, I feel like a lot of people are still caught in it, especially when it comes to things like work, career, money, business. That's a huge area. And I know you have quite a bit of programs that you offer support around that. And you're just the expert, in this field. So maybe you could share some insight or advice on those areas.
That is really sweet of you, my dear. Very sweet of you. And when it comes to business and career, it's actually the same type of thing, right? It's this idea that your success already exists, right? It already exists, and we can move into that by assuming so right now, and that is my approach when it comes to business success and career success, is really realizing that it already exists. And our way of accessing that in the physical world is to assume that it is true. And you can see this when we start to talk about states of consciousness, and really recognizing that states are complete in and of themselves. States already have assumptions within them. They already even have manifestations within them. When you just say certain states, you already start to get a sense of what someone is experiencing. You already get a sense of what they're thinking, their inner conversations. You already get this kind of picture. So if you say something like a struggling business owner state, right, you already get a picture of what that person might be experiencing. And that's how you know states are already complete in and of themselves. There's nothing that needs to be created. Within that state, there are these experiences and manifestations that are there. And so the great news about that is we can choose our ideal state, highly successful business owner, whatever it is, right? And move into that state and have what I like to call automatic manifestations, which are things that happen just as a result of you being in this state without effort, right? Without us needing to make something happen. These are automatic manifestations.
Yes, I love that so much. And it's really, the states come with the whole world in themselves, right? And what I found with a lot of people in this, when they come to this, their biggest challenge is sort of not so much moving into it initially, but maintaining in that state. There's a tendency for them to kind of keep going back to the old, where they have attachment to the old state, which they need to release. I mean, Neville says you really have to let the old man die. And I feel like that could be, bypassed quite a bit without a lot of people try to move into the new, but still trying so hard to hold on to the past and to have a fear of letting it go.
Yes, yes. There can be that fear of truly moving into the new and letting go of the old. And I think that's because there's this fear of the unknown. Like, well, what is this new state like? I don't really know what this is like, or not feeling like you have control over the new state, right? And it's like, I don't know how that's going to unfold. It's hard for me to see it. And there are certain things that I kind of recommend for that. If you notice that fear of like, ooh, but what is it going to be like? This fear of the unknown. I like to play with it in two ways. One is with revision, actually, believe it or not. And I like to advise people to revise that they've actually always been in that state, their ideal state, since they can remember. Right. And what that does is it allows the state to feel natural instead of this resistance to, oh my gosh, this is something new. It feels very natural. It feels very normal. And so that's one way we can use revision for that. The other way, because sometimes people say revision is not my thing, Candace, I don't like revision. Well, the good news is there's another way to play, and that is actually playing with time again. So you can imagine further out in time. And you're just, as we know, time doesn't actually exist, but you can use this to help the logical mind. So you can imagine at different time points, what is it like being in this state 6 months out, 1 year out, and then go out to 5 years. And what you're doing is you're noticing the difference in sensation between the time points, right? So how is it different at 1 year than it was at 6 months? How is it different at 5 years than it was at 1 year? And then you take that sensation at the 5 year kind of time point and you feel that now. And that collapses the time. And it also makes it feel very normal and natural to you.
I remember this exercise when I was in your business success program, and it was so fun. It's really cool. Now I remember when I played with it and how the 5 year ahead state felt really fabulous and almost like, okay, this is natural. And yeah, but then again, it's just about maintaining it and trusting. I guess trust is so important. And I guess what a lot of people trips up is this whole, okay, do, get, and doing to get. And oh my God, I need to control things in order to get them or everything will fall apart. And this is just for so many people the case, like this believing in that.
Yeah, and it's this is where I think it's so helpful to have fun and play with manifesting on a daily basis, because you can see that it's not by doing, right? And if you've got tons of examples, even if they're not related to business or your career, but they're just related to anything in your life, you can see how it works. And it's not from doing, it's not from making something happen. And as you have those examples, you begin to trust the process. And you're like, oh, I see that this is not about me doing something. It's about me assuming that something is true, me being it, right? Assuming it's true about me. And that's, you begin to see that. And it's like, oh, I can trust this process because this is how this has been working in every other area of my life.
Yeah, and that's why we are such huge advocates of embodied manifesting on a daily, on a daily basis as well, for you to really build up that trust and faith in yourself and your power, and then keeping it light too. And because really, when you approach it from a place of lightness, that's when it actually manifests the fastest.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It really does, because you're not coming from a place of lack, right? You're not coming from a place of lack. You already feel fulfilled. Nothing's missing. And so everything just throws itself at you as a result. Yes.
Yeah, and speaking of no lack, you see that you are already complete. And yeah, for me, this manifestation journey is really learning that, yeah, I am whole. We are all already whole, and we don't need to strive for loving ourselves. We just have to kind of see it, to remember it, actually. So yeah, and with that, the realization of our power comes. Yeah, this kind of goes hand in hand.
Yes, it's beautiful.
So beautiful. And I think just what you said about lack, I feel like a lot of people think they need to do to get, because they want to leave that lack state, but not realizing they will just perpetuate it coming from that space, rather than just, first of all, accepting, embracing it, and then deciding to move into fulfillment now.
Yes.
And the piece you said about uncertainty and the unknown, right? A lot of people have aversions to that. They want to avoid it because they don't feel safe. But that's really, the portal to everything that you desire, once you're able to just be fulfilled now and knowing that from that place, you will only experience better and greater and more fulfillment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, when I look back at my journey, it's the thing, looking at how things have unfolded have just blown my mind. And it leaves me speechless. I'm like wowed by how things unfold. And it's like, this is far beyond anything I could have ever consciously tried to piece together. And when you have that time after time after time where you're just wowed and awed, you trust the process. Like you were saying, it's like, oh, of course I trust this because I've seen how this works and it works wonderfully. So, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, wouldn't it be boring if we know everything consciously instead of allowing us to be surprised? And I mean, when we, for example, when we look at celebrities, how they actually got famous, there are so many stories that are just amazing. It's just mind blowing. And they were like, oh, I never thought that this could happen, especially in this way. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. There is, at least for me, I will say, there's so much joy in the unfolding, in the surprise of it, in the, the wonder of how it all came together and materialized. It's that is the juice of it, So yeah.
Oh, that's a good approach. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a big trust fall into your God self, essentially, to deliver to you all the beautiful surprises and unfolding. Better than what you could probably even imagine at times,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can say 100% of the time with my favorite manifestations, it has always been a situation where I could not have consciously constructed the means to how it would have happened. No way. No way. And wouldn't want to, because it was so cool, like how it unfolds. Like, that's awesome. Like, I love that I didn't have to figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I barely heard you talking about all kinds of emotions, the whole spectrum of human emotions. So a lot of people in the manifestation community tend to suppress intense emotions as they might feel uncomfortable and they are afraid of manifesting bad stuff. And so what is your opinion on that? And I mean, I always see you smiling and being like so, having a lot of energy. And do you ever have moments where you feel that you are crying or being pissed off or something? I was just kidding here, obviously.
Absolutely. Yes. And here's the thing that is so interesting about that is I will say, especially earlier in my journey, I used intense emotions to actually manifest things. Like I used it as a catalyst. And I'll give you some examples. So, moving to Hawaii, I'd kind of always known that I would live by the ocean and the mountains. I always used to tell my family, I'm going to live by the ocean and the mountains. But the catalyst to actually moving in consciousness was I was fed up with winter. I remember, I will never forget this, actually. I was in Texas and there was so much snow. It was like an absurd amount of snow. And I was so annoyed by that. Like, I was like, I'm done with winter. Like, I'm done driving in the snow. I'm done like being cold. Like, that just doesn't click with me. It doesn't resonate. And I was fed up. I was fed up with winter. And that was the catalyst to actually move in consciousness, right? To move to a tropical place. At the time, I did not know it was Hawaii, actually, but I just knew this is the last winter that I'm ever experiencing. And that was the bold claim. And so, you can take intense emotions and you can actually use them to your benefit. You can use them as a catalyst. I like to use them for clarity, right? Because usually when you're experiencing an intense emotion, there's something that you're being notified about. There's a desire there. There's some clarity, some really great clarity that you can get from that. And so using it as a catalyst can be very, very helpful. And so we don't have to run from intense emotions. We don't have to hide from them. You can't really do that anyway. It doesn't work, right? But you can use them to your benefit. And also know that it doesn't change your concept of self, right? So you can experience a full range of emotions and yet still be a highly successful business owner. You can experience an intense range of emotions and still be happily married, right? And so it's not a situation where it changes your concept of self as long as you don't identify with those emotions, right? When you're not really taking them on as who you truly are. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. This is, yeah, so powerful. We can really reframe everything. And yeah, coming from the quote, I don't know if it's a quote, but this whole thing of we give meaning to things. And yeah, here we are. Um, what did I want to say?
Yeah, I love that too. And I
No.
just wanted to, what you said, like we are God, right? So once you land in that, you're free from, you get to enjoy every emotion in the human experience, right? And they all get to work in your favor because you're not that. You are, God consciousness, your true nature. So you're free from, what people get caught up with, so-called negative thinking or negative emotions. But no, if you shift your perception around them and see the beauty and the gift that they have to offer you, and that you get to be the whole spectrum because you're God, and they all get to work in your favor.
Exactly. Exactly. They all support your ideal, right? And that's kind of my approach to life is like everything is supporting my ideal, whether I realize it or not, everything is supporting my ideal. So if there is anger coming up or frustration or whatever it is, that's actually supporting my ideal because usually it's a catalyst to move, right? It's like, oh, it's time for me to move. Like I've been settling. No
Yes.
wonder I feel
Oh,
angry.
this
I've been
is,
settling.
yeah, this is powerful. Yeah.
I can relate to that too, because it was really the anger because of my whole previous, I'm not, narrating this, but it's just because I was so used to a life of struggle, suffering, and a lot of compromised health conditions. And it was that mystical experience that I talked about earlier here that I was like, I am done suffering. I am done struggling. I'm done choosing hard in every single area of my life. I choose ease, bliss, flow, peace, because that is who I get to be.
I love
So
that so
that
much.
anger was so useful.
It really
Yeah.
is. It really, really is. And when you realize that, like you said, Ariel, you're free because you're not controlled by the anger. You're using the anger in a way that works for you. And I think that that's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I somewhere I've learned I can actually see, okay, I can feel all emotions. This just means I'm healthy, and we actually came here to experience all of the emotions. And yeah, this makes us again complete, whole, just everything. We contain everything. And as you said, every state contains all kinds of emotions. So, guys, again, remember you don't have to be afraid of your emotions. Those are natural, those are lovely, they are just part of you. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did have a fun question for you, Candace. I know you were moving in and out of particular top states or overarching states. Do you have a current one?
I love it. Right now, Ariel, I'm playing with the Lady of Leisure state. Um, it's just been a lot of fun to play with that. I believe before I thought, well, if I'm a Lady of Leisure, that means I'm not mentoring and I'm not, coaching and doing stuff like that. And then I realized, no, I'm absolutely doing those things, but I'm doing them from a leisurely place. And so that's been a really fun state to play with while still mentoring and still coaching and teaching. It's been so much fun to embody that state. Yes, yes, yes.
I think we're both going to assume that state.
Yeah. And we will
It's
let you
such a fun
know what
state.
we are coming across. Yeah.
That's so fun. I want to hear about it because, each state, like we were talking about earlier, it has its own set of manifestations and assumptions. And it's so cool to see the differences, even between, because I know many of you know about the woman who has it all, that state, even there's differences between the woman who has it all and Lady of Leisure. And so that's been fun to see kind of the differences between those two states, even.
And even just when you shared the two states, just by saying it, I could feel the different sensations attached to each and tapped into the realities. And the leisure one is just spaciousness. Oh, so good. I'm going to take that.
Let's make an experiment.
Yes, please, please. Yes, report back. Let us know how it goes. I love it.
Yeah, so okay, before we have our finishing question, do you have something you want to ask, or you have on your mind, Ariel?
Oh, me? Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I could be here all day, but I want
Me
to
too.
respect your time, Candice. So I guess just tell us a little bit about, I know that you're now in the Lady of Leisure, but you also, you know, you do mentoring, coaching, you run the Awaken the Godself accounts on YouTube and Instagram. Yeah, just what's brewing in your life right now?
I love that. You know, what I'm up to now is continuing to collect and share out of thin air, specifically out of thin air, manifesting stories. So for anyone who has a story, please send it to the Awaken the God Self account, because just sharing those stories is so inspiring for people, and it just allows us to see what is possible for us. And I'm also playing around with having fun and actually creating a program around that, like a manifesting program centered around having fun. And the main thing that's in that is this new kind of thing that came up for me, which I'm calling it best to better. So it's taking your very best moments in life, your most fun manifestations, your favorite experiences, and you're actually revising them to be even better. And what we've found from doing that, we had I believe it's like a 5-day challenge where we did this. What we found from that is there are huge ripple effects from doing that, and it's fun. So that is something that's coming in the pipeline. Stay tuned for that, because we're going to have a fun program all around this kind of best to better idea. So that's kind of what's going on right now. Just, of course, always letting the state lead, and whatever I'm inspired to do, letting that unfold. But that's the main thing right now.
Yeah, that's so cool. And what you mentioned, this, I guess this is kind of inspired by the Japanese concept of Kaizen. Could it be that they always take something that is good and they perfectionize it? Yeah.
Yes,
Cool.
that is exactly where that came from. It literally came from a conversation with my dad, and he was saying that he was studying Kaizen. And as he was talking about it, I literally saw this 5-day kind of challenge, and it just appeared before my eyes. And I'm like, Dad, you just inspired me. Can I use this for a challenge? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. And so we had that challenge. I believe it was 2 months ago now. And it was amazing. It was so cool. And so taking that concept and taking it even further is what we're up to.
So beautiful. And we'll definitely leave all the information to your accounts and signing up for that on our description. So everyone be sure to check that out.
Yeah, and just being here with us and having Candace's amazing energy. It's so wow. Yeah.
And truly, when you're embodied, the essence, the presence of someone really embodied in their God nature, you feel it, right? There's not much you need to even say, Candace, but just, I'm sure our readers will feel your presence and the power.
I feel
you
it here. Like, ooh.
You guys are so sweet. You guys are so, so sweet. And being here with you is such a joy. And seeing you guys do this podcast, I cannot even express how happy I am. I'm like, oh my
Thank
gosh,
you.
I'm so happy about this. This is awesome. You guys are doing amazing things. This is amazing. I love it.
Oh, thank
So do
and-
you. Thank you.
Yeah, for inspiring us, for mentoring us on our journeys, and we definitely manifested you on here.
I love that so much. I feel so honored to be here with you and to be a part of your journeys. It's such an honor, such an honor.
Yeah, for us too. And I set the intention one day we will chill together in Hawaii. And guys,
For sure.
be prepared
Aloha.
for something that we are creating together.
For sure. We had a fabulous time in Hawaii and you guys came first class, right?
Yeah,
Totally. Not settling.
Exactly. That's right. I love it.
Okay, I guess we wrap up for now. And yeah, it was so amazing to have you here. And yeah, it's such a fun episode. And yeah, it was good to have to record something amazing again. And yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you both so much. Love you both so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We love you.